They're talking about the NFL from a different perspective. Game recaps, stats, big plays, predictions, and much more. You're listening to the B&E podcast with Ed Donaldson and Brandon Simpson.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Breaking and Entering podcast. The regular season is over. Playoffs are over. The Chiefs are the champs. And now it's the off season, which is still a busy period. We've got a whole bunch of free agency we're going to get into today. First, Brandon, how you doing today, man?
Doing all right, man. Got a little bit of breaking Ravens news today, so kind of adjusting to that. But other than that, I'm doing good. What about yourself?
All right, cool. Yeah, man. You know, another day, another opportunity. That's how I try to look at it. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm doing all right, man. Well, yeah, let's get into it though, baby.
All right, we got an opening drive, everyone. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, he's reportedly expected to receive a multi-year extension. Michael Irvin, former Cowboy, three-time Super Bowl champion, he's suing the Marriott Hotel in Arizona for $100 million after being accused of sexual assault. He was also taking off the Super Bowl week coverage there in Glendale back in February. Magic Johnson, he joins billionaire Josh Harris's group in seeking to buy the Washington Commanders franchise. And free agent tight end Foster Moreau, I believe I'm saying his name right. He's has been diagnosed with cancer. Thoughts and prayers with him. Unfortunately, it appears that he will be stepping away from the NFL to take care of his health at this time.
Yeah, good luck to you, man.
Absolutely.
Before we get started, I wanted to ask your thoughts on that Michael Irvin situation. Have you been following that at all?
Bits and pieces.
Because they released, well, I guess Michael Irvin's team, they released a video.
I did see
I don't
that.
think there's any audio, but you can see video, and it doesn't really match the description of what the lady was saying happened. But again, there's no audio, so maybe Marriott is waiting for that. But that's definitely a situation I'm gonna be following, just because I know there's been a couple of videos. I think Michael Irvin, he had like a press conference with his lawyer or something. He got a little emotional at the end, saying how, you know, this is crazy what he's going through and everything. So
and he has to be careful what he says now in public moving forward and all that. I did catch that.
Yeah, because when I was first reading the story, he was like, yeah, I was I'm not gonna lie, I had a few, so I don't even remember the interaction like that. I was like, oh Lord, come on, Mike. they can't be slipping like that. So I'm definitely gonna be keeping an eye on that.
Well, at least at the beginning, if that's the case, he at least started with the truth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We don't know who's telling the truth right now. It appears that Michael is, but at least he started with the truth and said that he did have some drinks. So, okay, you know, it's not like he came out and lied and said, I wasn't drinking. I was just, just talking, whatever. But
exactly.
Best of luck to him and the woman as well. Hopefully they settle on something that's for both sides.
Yeah. So today's episode, everyone, we're going to talk about the free agency and all the moves that have happened. Apologies if we don't get everybody. There's a lot of moves that happened so far. This is our first episode since the all season started, and free agency started last week, but there's been a bunch of trades and everything. So we're going to try to get into all those moves, keep everybody updated. I'm going to start with the NFC side, and I'm going to switch it to Brandon for the AFC side. So let's get started with this NFC. The Cardinals, they signed linebacker Kaiser White, and they re-signed linemen Kelvin Beachum, Will Hernandez, the kicker Matt Prater, and running back Corey Clement. Atlanta Falcons, they signed quarterback Taylor Heineke. He was a former Commanders quarterback. I thought that was an interesting signing. Let me just break off a little bit with that because they have a Ritter, who they drafted last year as a quarterback. I thought he was going to be the guy of the future, but Taylor Heineke's coming in. I'll be surprised if Heineke wins the job, but, like my goddad said when he came on, that dude is a lucky charm, so he might pull some shit out his ass and win the starting job. Do you have any thoughts on that, or are you good?
I think I remember texting you about it.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes for him. I was kind of surprised that it seemed, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's only played for you all, right? I think he was on your practice squad.
He played for the Panthers too.
Oh, he did? So he's going.
Yeah,
so he's going back to the NFC South.
Ron was there.
Heineke did.
Yep.
I thought that was Kyle Allen. Okay.
Wait.
Tell me.
You might be right. Let me
Yeah,
check that real quick. I
yeah, no problem.
could have
But
sworn he came over with
while while you're taking a look at that, I was kind of surprised because as you're checking, I believe he only played with Washington, but I know he had a kind of feel good story with you all. I guess it kind of says that either you all are going to go all in on Sam Howell, or um, you are going to look to draft somebody. As for the Falcons, like you said, to have Ritter down there and you bring
yeah.
in a guy, it doesn't. You bring in a veteran, who probably wouldn't likely start on a lot of teams, but he can start there. So it's like, what are you saying to me? If I'm a Ritter, I'm saying, do y'all believe in me? Are y'all just trying to bring in some competition to kind of boost me up, or what? Or
Yeah.
are you all also going to look at drafting there? I think they're in the top 10 in the draft this year. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he started with the Texans for a year in 2017. Then he was with the Panthers for a year. And then he came to the Commanders in 2020. So
Telling
he
me
was
something new. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So I thought Ron brought him over. But yeah. But back
Gotcha.
to the Falcons. They also signed safety Jesse Bates the third, who was a starting safety with the Bengals. I thought that was a big pickup for them to shore up that defense. They signed tight end Jonnu Smith, a defensive tackle David Onyemata, and linebacker Caden Ellis. They re-signed guard Chris Lindstrom, linebacker Lorenzo Carter, tackle Caleb McGarry, and punter Bradley Pinion. The Carolina Panthers, they made a bunch of moves so far. They signed wide receiver Adam Thielen, quarterback Andy Dalton. They just signed wide receiver DJ Chark. They got Miles Sanders from the Eagles. They picked up Titan Hayden Hurst. Quick note on that, man. I hope he works out with them just because fantasy purposes. I had him in my fantasy league last year. He was killing it for me. But I'm
Yeah,
kind of worried. I think his production is going to drop because he had Joe Burrow
for
as a
sure.
quarterback. Now who knows who the hell is going to be quarterback?
Yep.
So we'll see about that.
You're
Back
right.
to the Panthers signing though. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said you're right though. Whole different drop off between
Yeah,
Burrow and whoever's going to be starting, no matter who's over there next year.
yeah, but he probably got some good money though. So salute to him
For
for that.
sure.
So they also signed D tackle Deshaun Williams, D line Shy Tuttle, safety Von Bell. I also think he came over for the Bengals. So right now it
Yes.
looks like the Bengals lost a bunch of players on the defensive side that are like starters.
Mm-hmm.
Guard Justin McCray, and they also received the first overall pick in the draft from the Bears via trade, and they re-signed center Bradley Bozeman. Speaking of the Bears, let's get over to there who they signed. They signed running back Deontay Foreman, linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, which I was really pissed about because his name was linked to us as well, and I was hoping when I say we, I mean the Commanders picked him up, but you know, salute to the Bears for that. They also got linebacker TJ Edwards, guard Nate Davis. They got the 9th overall pick in the draft from the Panthers, the 62nd overall pick in this 2023 draft, and a 2024 first round pick and a 2025 second round pick. In that trade, they also got DJ Moore. They signed DN DeMarcus Walker, running back Travis Homer, quarterback PJ Walker came over from the Panthers, tight end Robert Tonyan from the Packers, and D tackle Andrew Billings. And they re-signed the long snapper Patrick Scales, if I said that right. Cowboys kind of made a splash so far with a big name. They signed cornerback Stephon Gilmore via trade, and they signed Brandon Cooks. I think those are going to be two impactful players for them going forward. They re-signed safety Donovan Wilson, linebacker Leighton Vander Esch, tackle Tyron Smith, and quarterback Cooper Rush. The Detroit Lions, they got CJ Gardner-Johnson, safety, who came over from the Eagles, the running back David Montgomery, cornerback Cameron Sutton, and cornerback Emmanuel Mosley. These are all guys who they just signed. They re-signed running back Craig Reynolds, D lineman Isaiah Buggs, linebacker Alex Anzalone, D lineman John Comiskey, and cornerback CJ Moore. The Green Bay Packers, their name has been mentioned a lot this offseason with Aaron Rodgers. We're still waiting for that news to break on what's going to happen with him, but it's looking like more and more that Jordan Love, I believe the quarterback's name is, he's going to be the guy of the future. But to their signings, they signed long snapper Matt Orzek, and they re-signed their kick return specialist Keyshawn Nixon and safety Rudy Ford. LA Rams, let's get to them. They signed tight end Hunter Long via trade, and they got a 2023 third-round pick via trade with the Miami Dolphins, and they re-signed their guard Coleman Shelton. And let's move down to the Vikings. They signed cornerback Byron Murphy, tight end Josh Oliver, DN Marcus Davenport, D tackle Dean Lowry. They re-signed their quarterback Nick Mullins. They re-signed their center Garrett Bradbury, their kicker Greg Joseph, the running back Alexander Madison, the offensive lineman Austin Schlottman, and their long snapper Andrew DePaula. The Saints, they made a splash this offseason. They signed quarterback Derek Carr after he was released from the Raiders. They also got running back Jamal Williams, who had a career year with the Lions last year. I think that's going to be a big pickup with him, especially since, Kamara's
future's in there. Yep.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara, he's probably going to have some suspension looming with the legal issues he's having. They signed the D tackle Kalen Saunders. They re-signed Jameis Winston to a one-year deal. I'm happy to hear that. I think he can still play in this league, so maybe he'll have like a Geno Smith period where he bounces around teams, signs one-year deals, and get another shot. We'll see. But I'm glad he got re-signed. Re-signed tight end Jawan Johnson, who had a really good year sneakily if you look at his stats. DN, excuse me if I get this wrong, buddy, Tano Kapalsangan. They re-signed, defensive back JT Gray, and re-signed Michael Thomas, who has been injury plagued. Hopefully he can get healthy. The Giants, I want to ask you about this. They signed tight end Darren Waller via trade. Did you have any thoughts on that when that happened? I was kind of shocked with that one.
I like it. I was shocked that the Raiders let him go, but it's a good deal for them, especially after they lost. Was it Evan Ingram? They went without him last year. It was kind of a pickup year for Daniel Jones, but they did have a kind of a void at tight end. They still need some receivers. They have some young receivers that are making a name for themselves. A couple guys coming off of injuries. You're getting ready to get to the fact that they re-signed Sterling Shepard. I think
I'm surprised by that.
It was a rookie they had that got injured around the latter part of last year, so hopefully he comes back. But Darren Waller, he can play tight end and receiver, as everybody knows, so that should help them. Hopefully it's not a situation where you go from a stellar last couple of years, you get traded or go into free agency to another team, you have a down year or downgrade. Hopefully it's up from there and helps the production and development of Daniel Jones moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Back to the signings for the Giants, though. They signed Paris Campbell. He came over from the Colts, if I'm not mistaken. D tackle Raheem Nunez Roches, linebacker Bobby Okereke. They re-signed quarterback Daniel Jones. They re-signed Sterling Shepard, who's been hit with the injury bug as well. I think he is coming off a torn ACL, but it's good they have some faith in him, giving him another shot at it. Hopefully he can get back to his production before all those injuries. They re-signed punter Jamie Gillen, running back Matt Breida, and wide receiver Darius Slayton and linebacker Gerard Davis. The Eagles, let's move over to them. They signed running back Rashad Penny, quarterback Marcus Mariota, cornerback Greedy Williams. I think that's a really sneaky good signing for them. He came over from the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he's going to help out that secondary, especially since they lost a couple of pieces on that side. They re-signed center Jason Kelsey, their DN Brandon Graham, cornerback James Bradbury, Fletcher Cox, the D tackle, running back Boston Scott, Darius Slade, the cornerback, got re-signed, and Lane Johnson was just got an extension today as well. 49ers, they signed D tackle Javon Hargrave, quarterback Sam Darnold. That boy gonna stay with the job, it looked like. DN Cleveland Farrell. He was I don't want to say he was a bust. Well, I don't know.
Pretty much.
He definitely didn't live up to his potential with the Raiders, in my opinion. They re-signed D lineman Kevin Givens, tackle Tashawn Gibson, long snapper Tabor Pepper, and center Jake Brindle. Going to move down to the Seahawks now. They signed D lineman Draymond Jones, Jerron Reed, who's also a defensive lineman, offensive lineman Evan Brown, safety Julian Love, and linebacker Devin Bush. I think that might be a good sign for them, Devin Bush. He came up from the Steelers, right? I think he played with them.
Yes. Yep.
They also re-signed quarterback Geno Smith. He got a good deal of nice, respect deal for his services last year. Yep. And they re-signed quarterback Drew Lock, who'll probably be the backup again. Everybody was saying they thought Drew Lock would win the starting job. I think me and you were like, I don't see how.
Yep.
What the hell has he shown so far? But yeah,
exactly.
Smith. Salute to both of them. Tampa Bay Bucks, they signed a quarterback Baker Mayfield. Let's see how that works out. He'll probably be the starter unless they do some more moves, get somebody in the draft. So he'll probably get that starting job. That just so reminded. I'm sorry. Shannon Sharp kind of said something about that. He was like, he was talking about the wide receivers. He was like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. He was like, "Oh, we so excited. We got Baker Mayfield now," but he was being sarcastic about it. Excuse me for going off on that little tangent, but they got Baker Mayfield. The Bucks did. They signed running back Chase Edmonds and D tackle Greg Gaines. They re-signed cornerback Jamel Dean, linebacker Levante David, and DN Anthony Nelson. All right, let's get down to my Commanders. We signed quarterback Jacoby Brissett, tackle Andrew Wiley, offensive lineman Nick Gates, linebacker Cody Barton, cornerback Cameron Dantzler, and D tackle Abdullah Anderson. We re-signed Deron Payne. I think he's now the third highest highest paid D tackle, excuse me. Salute to him for that. He had a great season last year. Linebacker David Mayo, cornerback Danny Johnson, and center Tyler Larson. I just want to quick thought about the Commander sign. I like these moves. I don't know if Jacoby Brissett will come in to be the starter. I think it's going to be a QB battle. I think Sam Howell is the guy right now. I think he's slotted to be QB1, and Jacoby Brissett is coming in to be the backup. But maybe there'll be a QB battle for that one spot. But I think Sam Howell's going to be the guy. I also like these moves we did with the offensive line. Andrew Wiley, if I'm not mistaken, he came over from the Chiefs. I think.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. And we re-signed the center Tyler Larson. We need to shore up that offensive line. We'll see what we do in the draft. I think we'll go the first couple picks. I think we'll either go offensive line or try to get something in the secondary as well. But I'm gonna shoot it over to you. Let you get over to the AFC, Brandon.
Yep, like you said, switching gears to the American Football Conference. It'll be rare that you'll hear me promote this team, but we are the home of the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So I gotta brag real quick. Unfortunately, I didn't want them to win, but still. All right. The team that was late for the party, my Ravens, just made a move, a week or 2 weeks into free agency, whatever it's been. Just came down today. They signed wide receiver Nelson Aguilar, former Eagle and Raider there. We also resigned cornerback Trayvon Mullen, running back Justice Hill. I'm very proud of that. Definitely a big fan of him on our 3 running backs that we have. And safety Geno Stone, who's done good. He's filled in a lot during injuries as well as on special teams. Very good player there, young player. The Buffalo Bills up there in the AFC East, they've signed Damian Harris. He came over from the New England Patriots. Wide receiver Trent Sherfield, guard Connor McGovern, former Cowboy there. Wide receiver Deontay Hardy, quarterback Kyle Allen. They also re-signed, and I like the guys they kept in-house as opposed to some of the guys they signed. Safety Jordan Poyer, probably one of the best safeties in the league. Linebacker Matt Milano, he's definitely at the top of his game as well. Yeah. Linebacker Tyler Matavich, if I'm pardon my pronunciation on some of your names, guys.
Yes,
some of y'all I can spot you out, but I don't know your names. And punter Sam Martin. Heading back to AFC North, Bengals signed former Raven and Chief as well, Super Bowl champion tackle to protect Joe Burrow, Orlando Brown Jr., and bought over guard Cody Ford as well. They re-signed a linebacker Jermaine Pratt. The Browns in the AFC North, they signed defensive end Obo O'Connor. Excuse me, guys.
Yeah.
Defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson, tight end Jordan Atkins, defensive lineman Maurice Hurst, safety Juwan Thornhill, and Elijah Moore. They got in a trade from the Jets just earlier this week. They also re-signed Ethan Pochik. The Broncos out there in the Mile High City, they signed quarterback Jarrett Stidham from the Raiders, running back Samaji Perine, excuse me. I've been stubbing his name all year. Tight end Chris Manhertz, guard Ben Powers from my Ravens. Our left guard is gone. Tight end, tackle. Yeah, tackle Mike McGlinchey, defensive end Zach Allen, fullback Michael Burton, cornerback Trayman Smith, and they've also re-signed linebacker Alex Singleton.
Isn't
the Texans.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't McGlinchey? He came for y'all too, right?
Who's that?
Mike McGlinchey. Didn't he play with y'all?
No.
Oh.
Unless he was a backup somewhere.
I heard his name before.
Definitely Ben Powers for sure, because we had a young fan that was he had cancer. His name was Mo. He passed away last year before. Real big name in Baltimore. 6 years old, 8 years old, somewhere in that range. Couldn't see. Yeah. Couldn't see. I think he was he could hear though, but the year we drafted Ben Powers, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 4th round pick. He pronounced the name. You know how they always do the I can't think of the partnership.
They had him come up and announce.
Yeah,
they
announced the names. Cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. So he'll always, Ben Powers will be near and dear to our hearts in Baltimore for sure.
Yeah.
Texans, they signed tight end Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys. He'll come straight down 45 there in Texas to Houston. Running back Devin Singletary from the Bills, safety Jimmy Ward, quarterback Case Keenum, running back Mike Boone, wide receiver Robert Woods from the Titans, wide receiver Noah Brown. He's another guy staying in state there in Texas, won't pay state taxes there. Guard Shaq Mason, got him with a trade with the Bucks. Tight end Andrew Beck, defensive lineman Hassan Ridgeway, defensive end Chase Winovich, defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, and they've also re-signed Scott Cusenberry, safety MJ Stewart, and cornerback, defensive back Tavier Thomas. Heading to Indianapolis, the Colts, they've signed quarterback Gardner Minshew, defensive tackle Taven Bryan, linebacker Samson Ibukam, kicker Matt Gay. They re-signed their defensive lineman Taquan Lewis, linebacker EJ Speed, and wide receiver Ashton Dolan. The Jaguars, they re-signed quarterback CJ Beathard, defensive lineman Roy Robertson Harris, and safety Andrew Wingard. Defending Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs, they've been quiet so far. They signed tackle Jawan Taylor to replace Orlando Brown on the left side, and defensive end Charles Omenhu. They've also re-signed their own defensive end Tershawn Wharton. To the Raiders, they were big in free agency last year, kind of quiet this year, semi. They bought over Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers, wide receiver Jacoby Myers from the New England Patriots, safety Marcus Epps, cornerback Brandon Faxon, linebacker Robert Spillane, and tight end OJ Howard. They re-signed their own guys in running back Amir Abdullah, tackle Brandon Parker, fullback Jacob Johnson, and defensive lineman Jerry Tillery. The Los Angeles Chargers, they've signed linebacker Eric Kendricks. They've also re-signed quarterback Easton Stick, tight end Donald Parham Jr., defensive lineman Morgan Fox, and the punter J.K. Scott. Miami Dolphins down there in South Beach, they signed quarterback Mike White, linebacker David Long, Jalen Ramsey, big trade early in March for him from the Rams, and wide receiver Braxton Berrios. They also re-signed, this is a big re-signing, Raheem Mostert. He was big for them last year, as well as Jeff Wilson Jr., Myles Gaskin as well, and cornerback Nick Needham. The Patriots trying to get back to Super Bowl form. They bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, fresh off a Super Bowl win there in Kansas City. Tackle Riley Reif, running back James Robinson, tight end Mike Gesicki from their own division rivals there, and tackle Calvin Anderson. They also resigned their own guys, offensive lineman James Ferentz, linebacker Raekwon McMillan, cornerback Jonathan Jones, safety Jabril Peppers, linebacker Mac Wilson, and long snapper Joe Cardano. New York Jets, of course, you mentioned A-Rod earlier. They've been big, a lot of buzz there in Florham Park there. New York Jets, they signed wide receiver, former Packer Alan Lazard. They traded for our safety, Chuck Clark. Got us another draft pick out of that. Much needed draft pick, by the way. They signed the Jets offensive lineman Wes Schweitzer. I know I completely butchered that, but we'll keep it moving.
Yeah.
Longtime New Orleans Saints punter Thomas Morstead is now a New York Jet as well, and wide receiver McCole Hardman from the Super Bowl champions as well. They also resigned Quincy Williams, the linebacker, Greg Zuerlein, the kicker, and defensive lineman Solomon Thomas. Pittsburgh Steelers, they signed veteran corner Patrick Peterson, spent last year with the Vikings. Also guard Nate Herbig, linebacker Cole Holcomb, linebacker Ellendon Roberts, guard Isaac Samalo, and they also resigned defensive lineman Larry Agonjaboe. I know I did that one wrong too, but God forgive us. Tennessee Titans, they signed tackle Andre Dillard, linebacker Arden Key, linebacker Aziz Al-Shahir, guard Daniel Brunskill, cornerback Sean Murphy Bunton as well. They also resigned long snapper former Raven Morgan Cox and wide receiver Nick Westbrook Akeem.
Yeah, so that's all the signs we got so far. Apologies for all the names we butchered.
Definitely. Please.
And apologies if you missed any signings or trades. I want to ask you a couple questions before we get into the teams we thought made the best move so far. That trade or those signings between the Raiders and the Saints. In my opinion, I think the Raiders, quarterback-wise, they got a little bit better. I know Jimmy G and Derek Carr, they're kind of like middle of the pack, maybe kind of closer towards the top 10 as far as quarterback play. But I think the Raiders got a little bit more stability in the quarterback play because Derek Carr, he was so up and down, in my opinion. You know, one game he looked like, okay, this guy, he might take him to a good playoff run. And another game was like, damn, they might want to think about drafting somebody. I think the addition of Jimmy G will stabilize that position. But on the other hand, you know, Derek Carr, he never really had a good defense with the Raiders. He's going over to a team now, the Saints, they usually have a pretty good defense. That coach is defensive minded. So I think he'll have a good defense that'll back him up and keep Lee's more safer than what the Raiders did. In your opinion, who do you think will be a better quarterback? Derek Carr for the Saints, or do you think Jimmy G for the Raiders will be better?
Oh man, it's hard because I'm a little bit biased. I think it's hard to replace someone like Drew Brees in New Orleans. We saw that last year with Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton, and even they tried Taysom Hill there for a little bit, of course, because of injuries. If I had to go, I guess I'd go with Derek Carr. I think that right now he has, besides, I know Devontae Adams is out there and with the Raiders still, but I think he has better targets outside of the number one receiver, as far as, again, back to the Raiders and Devontae Adams. They just lost a tight end, so I think that's going to affect them as well. Looks like Jacobs is going to be back. I love Jimmy G. Been a fan of him, since he was in New England. Wish him the best there in Las Vegas, but I think I give the slight edge. I think it's very close. I give a slight edge to Derek Carr there in New Orleans. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's tough for me. I'm kind of on the fence, but the wind has pushed me more to Jimmy G. I just think he's a little bit more he'll stabilize that position for the Raiders. Like, I don't think he'll cost them games or be up and down. He'll be more consistent. He might not throw for 300 yards, light you up, but he'll, be consistent, maybe 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, very low turnovers. as long as he can remain healthy and stay healthy, I think he'll be good and keep that team up in the flow. I'm just kind of worried about the defensive side of things because he's the other teams he played for, he's played with teams, even when he was with the Patriots, that defense was good. He came over to the Niners and that defense was like top 3, top 5 every year. So that's my only concern with them. But I think I just like Jimmy G. I think he's a little bit more consistent and will have a little bit more stability. But we'll
He's
see
a
how
winner
that
for
goes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Steelers, they signed our linebacker Cole Holcomb. I mean the Commanders.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a sneaky good signing for them. He was real big for us. So I think he'll make some things happen in Steeler country. Don't be surprised if you hear his name when he play against y'all, because
I'm sure
he can run. He got some speed on him. I don't know how good he is, or I don't want to say how good he is as far as pass coverage, but as far as stopping a run and things like that, tackling, you might hear his name some. You might get Lamar or whoever the quarterback's gonna be. We're gonna talk about that a little later too as well. On some QB scrambles. But yeah, let's get into who we thought had the best free agency so far. Which teams thought had the biggest splash? Start with you, Brandon. What you think, man?
Don't judge me, but my spidey senses, they're going off and they're impressed with the Carolina Panthers, honestly. First things first, whenever you get rid of Baker Mayfield and Sam Ghostman, Ghostbusters, whatever you want to call him, Darnold.
Sixth Sense Darnold, yeah.
Granted, it was, Baker left during the previous season, but I guess that was on the back end of the season, so you can count that as towards free agency, somebody that they gave up. So yeah, that whenever you get rid of those guys there and you bring in you bring in Andy Dalton, I'm no fan of his, but he is better than those two. I mean, for sure. I think that Baker has some arm strength, but still, they're gone. They're moving forward. And then you add in Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, who they just added earlier today or yesterday, and then Hayden Hurst, like you mentioned. I know you said you'll be watching him because you had him on your fantasy last year. He definitely made things happen there with the Bengals last year. Of course, we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for sure. Again, Andy Dalton's there. They did move up in the draft, which I'm getting ready to get to as well. But I'm going to go to the defensive side before I move forward. You add a veteran safety in Von Bell. They already have a good young defense. I know the linebacker Burns. I can't remember his first name. It starts with a B. Very good young linebacker. I know they said they're going to try to extend him after the draft. Plus, Von Bell has a Super Bowl pedigree just 2 years ago, or last year, excuse me. They was in the Super Bowl, so that'll definitely help. Anytime you could bring in somebody with some experience of winning, it definitely helps, especially on a franchise that hasn't won a lot recently. And then, of course, getting back to the draft, they moved up to number 1. They gave up a lot there to get to number 1. In all likelihood, they draft a quarterback. We're all pretty much thinking that. I personally like Anthony Richardson right now at the very moment. I think he had a good combine. But I think, a couple of those guys there can go at number 1 and, make a names for themselves there. But this time they control their own destiny. They were at number 9 heading into the off season. Plus you add in Josh McCown at quarterbacks coach and D'Angelo Hall, former commander, to coach the defensive backs. They're not necessarily free agency moves as we know it. They're coaching moves, but that'll help as well. And wait a second, did I mention Miles Sanders? How could I forget him? Another guy with Super Bowl pedigree, fresh off a Super Bowl appearance, led the Eagles in rushing last year, 100 yards rusher. I believe it was the first time in his career he rushed for 1,000-yard rusher. I believe it was the first time in the career he got over 1,000 yards. But he's definitely going to help that backfield there, along with Hubbard, who's still there. And another team that I liked, surprisingly, I think because the Jets are taking a lot of attention in the AFC East, I like the Bills, some of the moves they made. You take your the running back from your rival Patriots, so not only did you downgrade them, but you boot your own backfield and Damian Harris. You had some protection with former Cowboy Connor McGovern. But I think their best moves, as I said earlier, was retaining and extending their own safety, Jordan Poyer, one of the best in the league at safety, as well as one of my favorite linebackers in the league. I had him as my defensive player a couple times, Matt Milano as well. So yeah, which teams or team do you think had the best free agency yourself?
Yeah, I definitely like those teams you picked. I thought they made some good additions as well. For me, I thought the Bears made a really good splash. They picked up some weapons for Justin Fields. Like I said, they got
Yeah,
Tremaine Edmonds. I don't want to say they stole him from us because he's a free agent, but I was really hoping the Commanders could get him. But I think he'll have a big impact for the Bears. They made splashes on both sides of the ball. You know, I said they got Tremaine Edmonds. They also picked up TJ Edwards, who came over from the Eagles. They signed running back Deontay Foreman after they got rid of David Montgomery, and they got DJ Moore, who's probably going to be their number one wide receiver now. And they
correct.
picked up Robert Tonyan, and that's the
Former
piggyback off of
Packers
the
tight end.
other tight end who I think will be really good and consistent. Cole Kmet, he's a young tight end, but I think he's going to be really good. So you're looking at this team now. They got DJ Moore as the number one. Darnell Mooney, he can slide into that number 2 spot. They got Chase Claypool, who'll actually probably be the number 2, in my opinion, and then Darnell Mooney. And then, running backs, they got Deontay Foreman and then Khalil Herbert. He made a name for himself last year, in my opinion, because David Montgomery was battling some injuries. And when Khalil Herbert came in, he really looked efficient. And then on the defensive side of the ball, like I said, Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, I think that's going to help them a lot on the linebacker end. They were having issues on the defensive line. So I'm going to see how DeMarcus Walker does. And then they picked up Travis Homer as well. He came over from the Seattle Seahawks. So I really like the moves the Bears made. And they traded that number 1 pick and kind of got a treasure chest of picks in return. They got the 9th overall pick in the draft. We'll see what they do with that. But that'll probably lead to immediate impact for them going to this next season. The other team that I thought made a really good splash so far, I don't know if you'll find it surprising, but I think the Houston
Yeah,
Texans,
you're
they
right.
made some really good moves. Dalton Schultz, I know he's been injured a lot, but we'll see how he does. I want to see what the quarterback position is going to be like for them next year, but I think he's a really good tight end. Devin Singletary, he was kind of number 1 running back for the Bills, kind of a dual threat type of guy, can run it and catch it out of the backfield. Defensive side of the ball, Jimmy Ward, he's coming over from the Niners, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So he'll be a veteran presence back there in the secondary. They picked up Robert Woods. The wide receiver they drafted last year, John Mechie, he was the guy we were talking about off air. I couldn't remember his name, but he was the guy. Actually, did he come? Yeah, he was he had like a sickness or something. Can't remember exact issue it was, but I know they discovered something when he was
Yes.
coming out of the draft. But if he's able to come back next year, that might be a sneaky good wide receiver core with the addition of Robert Woods. They also picked up, what's my guy's name? Noah Brown, as you mentioned, from the Cowboys. And they got guard Shaq Mason in the trade with the Bucks. So, I mean, they picked up some guys. I think a couple of more guys came over from the Niners with the addition of their new head coach. So I'm gonna be interested to see how the Texans do. But I really like the moves they made so far. Chase Winovich, that's a name that I remember. I think he'll have an immediate impact. Sheldon Rankins as well. So yeah, I like the Texans and the Bears so far. Let me ask you this real quick before we get into this other stuff. What do you think about the Dolphins and the trade they got Jalen Ramsey? Now they got 2 guys that are really big names, Xavier Howard
Yep.
on one side and now Jalen Ramsey. So you think that defense will be even better?
I hope so for them. That's obviously the reason why they traded for him, but I know Jalen was getting beat a couple times last year. Got torched actually.
Yeah.
It wasn't Jalen Ramsey-esque, what I'm saying? It wasn't his type of year, but
Yeah,
we'll
that's true.
see how that pans out for them. And I think they add in a new defensive coordinator as well. You still have Bradley Chubb and those guys there on the front end. So yeah, I think it'll help. Anytime you add somebody like him to your secondary, it should do nothing but help. But then again, I think back, we saw a year that wasn't like that out of him. I know he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was healthy all year. I know some of the other guys on the defensive side of the ball were battling injuries there in Los Angeles, and it seemed like they were just losing games as well. But hopefully, it'll work out for him. and the team.
And I also want to mention, I think we talked about this before, one of the earlier episodes and maybe in the opening drive, but the Jaguars, they're getting Calvin Ridley. He was suspended last year because of gambling. He got reinstated.
Mm-hmm.
So that offense, man.
They're looking good right now on paper.
Man, they already got Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram had a comeback, or I guess you could say breakout year. Can't remember if he really put up big numbers like that, the Giants, but he really looked like a number one tight end out there. So that Jaguars offense, man, we'll see what happens. But if you don't got any thoughts on that, I wanted, because you're a Ravens guy, I want to get your thoughts on this Lamar Jackson contract situation, man. Need to know.
It should have been done a long time ago. That's the first thought. I know that he came out on Twitter was last week, said he turned down 3 years, 133 mil guaranteed, if I'm not mistaken. I do know, as I've said many times before, our owner isn't very fond of the guarantee contracts after Deshaun got paid. Was it last off season?
Yeah, that was a crazy contract.
Yeah. And, we all have our thoughts on it and stuff, but I do know that it seemed like as soon as that happened, and of course we hadn't signed Lamar at that point because they didn't go about, I guess you could say, the new school way of doing it after year 3 or 4, re-sign them. They waited until now, even though they were negotiating along. So obviously the longer you wait, the more your price tag goes up. As far as, the quarterback value goes up. So, we have until July 17th, I think, for him to sign the tender. I know it was some news that came down recently. The NFL sent out the memo to the teams to negotiate directly with Lamar because he doesn't have an agent. Apparently, I read bits and pieces, but you refreshed me before the show that they could have been speaking out to, somebody else close to him as opposed to him when he was, or he was having somebody reach out to other teams. So, I don't want to see anybody else under center for us next year besides Lamar. I still have confidence that they'll get it done. I would be okay with Tyler Huntley playing if we had to. If Lamar, let's put it this way, if Lamar holds out, I don't want to say, okay, let's trade him, and then I'll be okay with Tyler Huntley. If we have to, in a sense, I'll be okay with it. But I definitely don't want anybody else but Lamar, for sure.
I got you. Because there's been like rumblings, like Atlanta. I've been seeing a couple articles. I think maybe a couple of media personalities might have mentioned, but Atlanta Falcons is a team that people would like to see Lamar play for. I think that'd be interesting, but I don't know. Like you said, I think they should have got this done a long time ago. Now, for Lamar, I will say I think he should kind of stay off social media. Like when he was talking about the, I guess he was trying to throw some sand on the report that Adam Schefter, when he put out what he said about, the Ravens offered him this much, and he was like, no, it's only, like you said, 3 years, 133 million. He did put out like a teaser of an interview he's gonna do, I guess, kind of going over things. I think that's the way if he speaks or wants to make a statement, he should do it that way. Give a long interview instead of like giving these little tweets out here and there, because people are going to speculate and they're going to paint a narrative, and people going to say, oh, here you go on social media again, running his mouth for doing this, because he has some run-ins on social media that has kind of painting him in a negative light. So I think whenever he does release his interview, I think that's how he should move forward. I think he should lay low on social media. If he does talk, don't talk about the contract at all. Don't bring that up. Yeah, I know you might hear some stuff. It's probably, it could be the team they feeding stuff to these reporters so they can put it out there to kind of make them look like the good guys and make Lamar look like the bad guy. But my opinion, Lamar, stay low on social media. If you want to make a statement, do it on your platform like you're doing right now with your YouTube channel, get an interview going. And hey, brother, man, if you want to come on this show and get an interview, we are welcome anytime. So, but I think
absolutely.
I'm hoping y'all stay with him, but I don't know, man. I honestly think I think it's gonna be until the 17th until he signs something. Y'all got some time to figure it out. And that's gonna be kind of risky because They got a new offensive coordinator. Hopefully he's still in communication with the team. He's still in communication with those guys, the wide receivers, tight ends, hell, the whole offense, just so they can, kind of be ready when, training camp comes around and the mini camp and all that shit that goes on during the off season before the regular season, the preseason starts to ramp up. But we'll see. I'm definitely going to be following this closely, and we'll keep everybody updated as well. But yeah, you got anything else on that though?
I do not on the whole Lamar Jackson thing.
All right, so
you ready to close out?
Yep, you got it.
That's it for today. All right. Thanks everyone. Another special thank you to all of our listeners. We definitely appreciate y'all. Be sure to subscribe to us, the B&E Podcast on YouTube, to get updates on when our shows become available. Until next time, love one another.